Rowan Atkinson, the genius behind Mr. Bean, has just dropped a bombshell that fans never saw coming. At 69, he finally reveals a shocking truth about the beloved character we've all speculated about for years. In this video, we'll unpack Atkinson's unexpected confession, explore its implications, and uncover how it changes everything we thought we knew about Mr. Bean. You won't believe the surprising twist that awaits you at the end. How Mr. Bean was born. Mr. Bean was the outcome of intelligent thinking by Rowan Atkinson. He did not just happen. Though he was not your usual comedian, Rowan always had a natural ability to make people laugh. Rowan discovered he could make others laugh simply by the way he moved or created faces, not depending on words or jokes. Mr. Bean's core was this unique sort of comedy, sometimes referred to as physical comedy. Rowan first developed the concept for the character while a university student. He participated in comedy shows, but he found that his audience laughed the loudest when he remained mute and just expressed things with his face and body. At this point, he began to consider, what if I created a character who didn't speak much but still made everyone laugh? And that idea helped him create the oddball, iconic Mr. Bean. People first got to meet Mr. Bean on TV in 1990, simply titled Mr. Bean. The show debuted on January 1st and became an instant smash. Rowan Atkinson gave his new character life in a manner never seen before. People had gotten accustomed to comedians who used words and jokes to make them laugh. But here was a man who said hardly at all. Rather, he made people laugh with his physique, his expressions, and the ludicrous circumstances he found himself in. Mr. Bean's very first episode revealed exactly how original and humorous the character was. Mr. Bean is exam-taking in the opening scene. Not ready, Mr. Bean begins to panic while everyone around him appears cool and collected. It's funny when he attempts to cheat off the person next to him in such blatantly clear manner. Audiences couldn't stop giggling even though he spoke scarcely during the whole episode. Mr. Bean did not originate with Rowan Atkinson alone. Among the outstanding silent film actors from the past, particularly Charlie Chaplin, he found inspiration. Renowned silent cinema performer Charlie Chaplin starred in the pictures lacked sound. Hence, Chaplin had to utilize his body and face to get people laughing. Seeing this, Rowan decided it would be interesting to design a contemporary figure capable of doing the same thing. Mr. Bean exhibits ridiculous, naive conduct, just as Chaplin did. Though he is an adult, he sometimes behaves like a small child. Simple tasks like operating a TV remote or shopping without creating havoc elude him. And precisely that makes him so humorous. Because we all have times when we act foolishly or embarrassingly, just like Mr. Bean, people can somewhat relate to him. Some folks first didn't know what Mr. Bean meant. He was quite unlike other TV characters of the day. Some questioned why he didn't say more or felt he was too strange. But very quickly, people all around saw how outstanding the character was. People couldn't stop giggling whether it was about Mr. Bean's quirky sandwich-eating technique or his attempt to arrange a turkey on his head in his flat. The fact that Mr. Bean was understandable to everyone added even more value. He spoke very little, hence people from all around the world could enjoy the program without knowing English. Mr. Bean rapidly became a worldwide hit since his comedy was universal. Children delighted in his naive pranks, and adults valued Rowan Atkinson's physical comedy's inventiveness. From the very start, Mr. Bean was a figure everyone, from all walks of life, could love. Just by being himself, a clumsy, awkward, and charming man who turned daily events into funny excursions, he made others laugh. And for this reason, Mr. Bean is still among the most cherished characters in television history. Mr. Bean was making the entire world laugh, not only making folks in the UK laugh soon. It didn't take long for the show to go global once it debuted in 1990. Mr. Bean was unique in part because his humor relied on non-verbal cues. Thus, people from all over could appreciate his ridiculous antics without having to speak English. From wherever they lived, everyone could relate to his physical comedy. Mr. Bean was developing into a cultural figure as the show gained popularity, not only a TV persona. Mr. Bean appeared on TV shows in Asia, Africa, and the Americas in addition to Europe in the 1990s. He was present everywhere. Funny enough, folks from all around adored him for the same reason. He was simply plain funny, even though he spoke hardly at all. People of all ages loved him for his mistakes, awkward manner, and naive character. Still, Mr. Bean's path didn't finish on the TV program. The character kept developing in fresh and fascinating ways even after the show finished. Bean, the ultimate disaster movie, debuted in 1997 and brought Mr. Bean's turbulent exploits to the big screen. The film proved really popular and attracted even more viewers into Mr. Bean's universe. Then he came back in 2007 with Mr. Bean's Holiday, visiting France and generating even more funny disturbance. Still, it wasn't only live-action Mr. Bean that kept folks chuckling. An animated series developed in 2002, giving the same ridiculous character life in a completely fresh manner. Younger viewers who might not have seen the original show came to love this Mr. Bean rendition. The cartoon Mr. Bean is still on broadcast today, demonstrating that his popularity spans generations, that is, regardless of age, 5 or 55. The finest thing is Mr. Bean's comedy has no boundaries. In nations where people speak many languages, follow different customs, and lead somewhat varied lifestyles, he is loved. When someone sees Mr. Bean attempting to fix his car, decorate his house, or even head to the beach, everyone can chuckle, though. That is why he is a real worldwide sensation. His comedy unites people. The man behind Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson. Let us now turn to Rowan Atkinson, the man who brought Mr. Bean to life. Atkinson was already making people laugh with his keen wit and fast humor before he became well known for performing the fumbling Mr. Bean. He starred in a British comedy show called Not the 9 O'Clock News and subsequently Blackadder, where he portrayed a quite different kind of character, clever, sardonic, and constantly up to no good. These performances established him as among the top comedians in Britain. The way Rowan Atkinson differs from Mr. Bean in actual life is amazing. Although Mr. Bean appears awkward, naive, and speaks little, Atkinson is really rather clever and reflective. One of the best universities in the world, Oxford University, where he studied sharp, analytical thinking. The total opposite of the crazy, over-the-top character he plays on film, he is recognized for being more serious and reserved when he is not acting. Rowan Atkinson has discussed frequently why he enjoys physical comedy so much. He thinks a great approach to engage viewers is to make them laugh utilizing your face and body. Physical comedy, he once stated, is universal, meaning anyone, regardless of language or culture, may enjoy it. Mr. Bean works so brilliantly everywhere as he just is humorous. He doesn't have to talk to be funny. And Rowan excels in making others laugh with physical comedy. Although Mr. Bean earned Rowan Atkinson worldwide recognition, it also greatly affected his career. While other performers may grow bored with only one character, Rowan has embraced Mr. Bean as a legacy item. Mr. Bean is still his most adored character, even though he has gone on to perform in films like Johnny English, where he portrayed a fumbling secret agent. Globally, people know and love him for this. Still, Rowan found it difficult to be Mr. Bean. He once said that performing such a physical persona may be somewhat taxing. Mr. Bean is often running, falling, and entering bizarre circumstances. Rowan has to work hard to make it seem natural. Still, the happiness he gave millions of people made all the worth it. Mr. Bean is glad he given Rowan Atkinson a unique position in comic history. People have not only laughed at Mr. Bean over years, but also questioned who or what he actually is. Watching Mr. Bean and not stop to consider, is this guy from another planet? Is difficult. He is really unlike everyone else around him after all. He seems not to grasp the most fundamental ideas, like how to act in public or complete small chores like opening a door or operating a remote control. Fans have naturally developed all sorts of strange hypotheses to fit his odd behavior. Among the most often used fan theories is the one suggesting Mr. Bean is indeed an alien. Indeed, many people think Mr. Bean is not from Earth at all, which explains his constant misreading of events. Consider it. Each episode begins with Mr. Bean plummeting from the heavens in a beam of light, nearly as if he were being dropped off by a spacecraft. Fans have surmised that he is an extraterrestrial sent to Earth to study humanity, but is not quite sure how to fit. If you see him as someone not from this planet, his peculiar mannerisms, including his bizarre walk, along with his unusual attire and lack of awareness of commonplace objects, make sense. Another interesting hypothesis holds that Mr. Bean is really a toddler caught in an adult's body. He does indeed behave sometimes like a huge child. When things don't go his way, he throws temper tantrums, plays with toys, and becomes too enthralled with ridiculous objects. Advocates of this concept cite his childlike purity and inquiry. Mr. Bean seems to never fully know why others respond the way they do to his behavior. Hence, mentally, he looks to be still a little child learning how the world works. Naturally, Rowan Atkinson and the creators have never spoken publicly about these ideas. In interviews, Atkinson would frequently sidestep inquiries about Mr. Bean's actual identity, leaving it to the viewers to assume. This merely stoked additional conjecture. People adored trying to find out whether Mr. Bean was an alien, a child, maybe even something else completely. And for decades, that mystery added even more appeal to the persona. Fascinating is the fact the show never truly provides us with definite answers. Mr. Bean remains a mystery over the films and series. We never know his complete name, why he acts the way he does, or even where he comes from. For years, this has kept fans wondering, as everyone has their own interpretation of Mr. Bean's actual nature. One of the factors that has made the character so ageless, the mystery behind Mr. Bean, is practically as interesting as his antics. The big revelation, what we thought all along. However, recently Rowan Atkinson answered some of the long-standing concerns regarding Mr. Bean's actual personality, therefore providing some sort of closure for fans. In a rare interview, Atkinson revealed his well-known persona in a manner he had not before. Years of avoiding the subject, he finally addressed followers with something they had been waiting for, the solution to the great question: what precisely is Mr. Bean? In the interview, Atkinson said Mr. Bean was never supposed to be human in the conventional sense. Mr. Bean was intended to be a man from another place, someone who doesn't quite fit in with the surroundings, according to what many fans had surmised for years. Although Atkinson stopped short of labeling Mr. Bean an alien straightforward, he did acknowledge that his unusual conduct and perplexity with human norms were deliberate. He wanted Mr. Bean to come across as an outsider, someone who views the world from a somewhat unusual angle. Because it enhanced the appeal of Mr. Bean, Atkinson said he preferred leaving his beginnings obscure. Should Mr. Bean have a clear past, it would lessen the enjoyment of seeing him stumble through life without any apparent reason. Though fans always sensed something was wrong about Mr. Bean, leaving it open-ended let them formulate their own hypotheses and ideas. The persona felt more universal because of his air of mystery. He could be whatever the viewers wanted him to be. Though not a clear, yes, he's an alien, the assurance from Atkinson enough to have supporters excited. People began revisiting past events and films, pointing out all the minute cues dropped over time. For instance, always felt as a pointer to something otherworldly, the famous opening sequence shows Mr. Bean falling from a ray of light to Earth. Then Mr. Bean interacts with objects like toothbrushes or alarm clocks, like he has never seen them before. When you consider him as someone who is not entirely human, things begins to make sense. Immediately after Atkinson's remarks was the fan response. Social media erupted in arguments and analysis about Mr. Bean's actual nature. While some supporters were just delighted to hear Atkinson discuss the character they love so much, others were delighted to at last have their ideas verified. For many, even if Atkinson acknowledged the peculiarity of the character and left the door open to interpretation, he did not say, "Mr. Bean is an alien," directly. Though it still felt great to hear it from the man personally, in a sense the major disclosure was exactly what supporters had always suspected. The fact that Atkinson has kept Mr. Bean's beginnings a secret for so long reveals just how much thought he has given to creating a character that appeals to people of many generations. One thing is certain, Mr. Bean is a character that will make people laugh for years to come, regardless of his extraterrestrial, child, or just plain unusual human nature. Even more fascinating is how this latest proof relates to what we have always observed on the program. Those tiny instances when Mr. Bean gets lost in something basic or finds it difficult to grasp how a light switch operates. They all cite him as being from another place. Though they intended us to solve it on our own, it's almost as though Atkinson and the filmmakers were providing hints all along. Unquestionably, Mr. Bean has shaped comedy. He made them laugh in a straightforward, ageless manner right from his first show. Mr. Bean stood out by depending on physical comedy and slapstick humor at a period when TV was overflowing with word-heavy sitcoms. Through Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson demonstrated the world that comedy didn't need words. Enough to send onlookers into convulsions of amusement were his overdone facial expressions, awkward positions, and sloppy motions. Modern comedians have most certainly learned from Mr. Bean. Clear reference to the comedy Mr. Bean created, shows like The Office and Parks and Recreation frequently use awkward silences and physical humor to make viewers laugh. More recently, even, comedians like Jim Carrey, known for his extreme physical comedy, have admitted Mr. Bean as a source of inspiration. Carrey's use of expressive facial expressions and exaggerated motions feels quite much in line with the style of comedy that made Mr. Bean a household figure. Mr. Bean is amazing in that his humor cuts beyond language. He hardly talks. Hence, people from all around the world can enjoy his antics without thinking about English. This has made Mr. Bean a global celebrity. Though none are truly needed, the character has been shown in over 190 countries, and millions of people laugh in many languages. The animated Mr. Bean keeps the character alive for next generations. Cartoons allow children who did not grow up with the original show to still enjoy his funny adventures, therefore confirming Mr. Bean's continued relevance today as opposed to in the 1990s. His classic style of comedy reminds us that laughter requires only a little bit of absurdity and a lot of heart. Words are not necessary. Given Mr. Bean's enormous popularity, many wonder whether Rowan Atkinson intends to bring the character back for additional films or shows. Although Atkinson hasn't closed the door on Mr. Bean entirely, he has said he might not return to the role in live action. After all, especially as Atkinson ages, performing such a physical character may be taxing. Atkinson has also indicated interest in leaving Mr. Bean to investigate fresh ideas. From serious theater presentations to action-packed movies like Johnny English, he has assumed several parts in many genres. Though the character will always be a major component of his legacy, it is quite evident that Atkinson does not want to be identified only by Mr. Bean. Atkinson has said going forward that he is eager to take on more major roles and initiatives. Mr. Bean will always be a major player in his career, though, even as he looks ahead, and a man who has had a profound impact on the comedy scene. Mr. Bean is now far more than just a TV character. He's a global emblem of British comedy. He has broken down language barriers and reached audiences all across by his ability to make people laugh without speaking. Furthermore, beyond the screen is Mr. Bean's cultural influence. From toys and clothes to viral memes and internet material, the character has changed in the digital age. Mr. Bean will always be a part of popular culture as long as people find a decent chuckle entertaining. Through repeats of his past episodes or fresh memes, Mr. Bean's legacy will live on and cause people to grin across decades and borders. And there you have it. After all these years, Mr. Bean has finally given us the answers we've been waiting for. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Mr. Bean, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more fun stories.